Hi, this is Sean D'Souza from psychotactics.com, and you're listening to the 3-Month Vacation Podcast. This podcast isn't some magic trick about working less. Instead, it's about how to really enjoy your work and enjoy your vacation time.
This is the 3-Month Vacation. I'm Sean D'Souza. If you notice, this is our second rerun, and the reruns aren't going to last forever. We have just 2 more to go before we get back to our normal programming. This one is pretty cool. It's about happiness, and as I look back on 2015, one of the things that have made me truly happy is completely taking time off on weekends, not going to work, not doing anything on the weekends. Even though we take all this time off during the year, that weekend break has been just amazing for me. It's made me less tired. It's made me more productive, I would say. I'm just doing 13 podcasts in a row, so I suppose that's productive enough. And the second thing that has really made a change is taking a nap. So I would talk about taking a nap and then avoid taking a nap. And sometimes a nap can be 20 minutes and sometimes a nap can be an hour and a half. But I take a nap. But these two things, these breaks as it were, they're making a huge difference to my life. And I would suggest you try it out. See if you can take some time off on the weekends and then take whole weekends off. And yes, see if you can take 20 minutes off in the afternoon. That's a really good nap to take. It reinvigorates you and you're ready to go. If you can take a nap for an hour and a half, that's even better. When you think about it, it's the really small things that make us happy. And this podcast is about happiness. It's about how to get there and how to get those obstacles out of the way. When I was 8 years old, the highlight of my week was coconut water. On Saturdays, I'd go with my father to get all the provisions for the week. There was no drive to the supermarket 10 times a week. Instead, once a week, we'd get on a train and then we'd walk to the market. And the market was filled with fresh vegetables, with meat, with fish and fruit. And in the middle of this market was a guy who sold coconuts, and of course, coconut water. And almost nothing brought a smile to my face as much as the thought of coconut water, drinking coconut water on Saturdays. It was my moment of pure bliss. And that's just it. That is the secret of life. We go around trying to find the purpose of life, when the answer is right in front of us all the time. The purpose of life is to be happy. Except I wasn't entirely happy with just the coconut water. After we'd bought a ton of meat, fish, and vegetables, we'd head back to the train station, and there at the train station there was the stall, and we'd eat a potato snack. It was dipped in a mixture of green mint chutney and tamarind sauce. Now that too was my moment of bliss. So wait, this happiness story, it's getting weird, isn't it? I mean, here we are trying to establish happiness, and it seems like we're jumping from one point to another. And that's exactly the point. No one thing makes us happy. For me, my current moments of bliss are the walk to the cafe with my wife, the coffee, let's not forget the coffee. There's also the time that I spend with my nieces, my painting, my work, the music on my podcast, and single malt whiskey. And yes, of course, the 3-month vacation. Now notice that is a list. And yet, most of us never write down what makes us happy. So do it. Do it as an exercise. Get out a sheet of paper, make a list, and it won't necessarily be a very long list. The funny thing is that it will consist of rather mundane things like gardening, a walk to the beach. I even know someone who is super contented just by ironing. Making the list enables us to know exactly what we want from life, or at least more or less what we want from life, so we can start heading in that direction. Because right in front of us there are obstacles, and these obstacles are determined to reduce, even eliminate our happiness. So what are those obstacles? There are 3 obstacles. The first is inefficiency, the second is greed, and the third is self-doubt. Inefficiency? Really? Yes, really. Though you'd never expect to see inefficiency in a happiness list, it's the number 1 killer of happiness. That's because if you were to look at your list again, you'll find that everything that makes you happy also takes time. Time that you were spending being inefficient. So look at the software you're using. How efficient are you at it? Let's take, for example, the 3-month vacation podcast that I create. The podcast recording itself just takes 15 or 17 minutes. I can usually do it in 1 or 2 takes. But each podcast is matched to music, often as many as 8 different pieces of music. And all of this music and production and editing, it takes over 3 hours. So the question that arises is just this: how do you save 10 minutes? Just 10 minutes in a 3-hour exercise adds up to 20 minutes a week if you do 2 podcasts, or about 100 a month, which totals up to 1,200 a year. That's 20 hours of happiness, or rather happiness deprivation. And for what? For inefficiency? That's a stupid, really stupid way to go about things, isn't it? But we do it routinely. We stay inefficient. We know that one of the best ways to get clients is to write a book or a booklet, to create information that draws clients to you instead of chasing after them. And we know that the book can't just be written, it needs structure. But no. We sit down and we write the book. And many hours later, we're not very sure why we're struggling so much with the book, or why a client is even going to read it. And of course, we are stepping deeper into that doo-doo of inefficiency. So what are we to do? Well, we have a list of what makes us happy, right? How about a list of things we do, the software we use, the books, the video, the audio we have to create? How about a list, and it's not a very long list, that enables us to see where we can get some more efficiency? Instead of slogging for a year over a book, wouldn't it be nicer if we could use some structure? And that alone might save you 10 months of twirling round and round. If you use a piece of software a lot, how about just 2 shortcuts learned a week? Just 2 a week. See how that brings inefficiency down to its knees. 2 shortcuts at a time. Inefficiency is a big problem. Sure it is. So let's get it out of the way. And once we've got that out of the way, let's tackle the next one, which is greed. Because greed is not far behind, is it? So let's move to the second killer of happiness, and that's greed. So what's the big deal with greed? I think greed is good. Whenever I've been greedy, I've almost never felt bad. I'm pretty happy when I'm stuffing my face with one more helping of biryani or another helping of matcha ice cream. So greed itself is not the problem, but it can get in the way. And that's because it takes time to wash off the greed. Too much ice cream, too much wanting this and that, all of it takes time. Because now I have to balance out the greed and atone for it in some way. I have to walk more, exercise more, work more. And it doesn't make any sense, does it? Yet, we all have the dollar signs in our face. We have marketers that show us how much they earn every month. So one month they earn one pile of dollars, then the next month another pile of dollars. And what we do is we follow like idiots, expecting that the dollars will show us the way. And the dollars are important. Without the dollars, we're just spinning our wheels. But there is a point of enough. Again, this comes down to a definition, perhaps even a list. What is your enough? Do you know? Even though I love my nieces dearly, I have a point of enough. Coconut water? Even an 8-year-old could tell you what was enough. And yes, the dollars. Do we really have to keep doubling them? Are we working for the joy of working, or are we slaves to the smile of our bank managers? Greed? That's nice. But in small bursts. It's terrible as a strategy. We pay the price and it becomes a form of inefficiency. And it becomes the second barrier to our happiness. The second obstacle to our just being content and happy. So the first obstacle was inefficiency. The second is greed. And the third one is just self-doubt. Self-doubt is a big rocking chair, isn't it? You know the concept of a rocking chair, don't you? It gives you the feeling of movement, but it goes nowhere. It keeps doing cartwheels round and round and round in our brain. And it's easy for us to say you should not doubt yourself, but if you run into a person who's always second-guessing themselves, you realize that there's not much you can do about it. And it's terribly inefficient, this self-doubt. It fills your brain with a load of nonsense that keeps you from being happy. And there's nothing much that you can do about it because the damage isn't new. It's been part of you. It's been part of your heritage, part of what your brain remembers for a very long time, a good chunk of your life, in fact. So here's a way to counter self-doubt. Learn to say thank you. That's it. The inefficiency comes from the fact that someone won't like your article or your book or your painting or your garden or the muffins that you just baked. And if you just assume that you're at the point of thank you, you've saved yourself a lot of grief. Because if you're saying thank you, it means that you just got complimented on something. Even just the thought of saying thanks is making you smile right now, isn't it? Now you no longer have to apologize or backtrack. The thank you is your way out of the mess every single time. And that brings us to the end of this episode, so let's do a quick summary. The three things that we covered, the first one was the inefficiency. And we've talked about this on previous podcasts, but inefficiency comes in the way of everything, and mostly your happiness. The second is a factor of greed. You have to know what is your enough. If you don't know what your enough is, then you're always unhappy. And the third thing is just self-doubt. It doesn't matter who you are and how many books you've written and what you've done, there's always self-doubt. And you have to put yourself in the position of saying thank you. Of course, it's not easy. People have been searching for happiness their whole lives. People have been searching for happiness for centuries. But the way to happiness is always to know the obstacles. And if you know the obstacles, you can get out of the way, at least part of the time, if not all of the time. And that's the way to stay happy.
If you haven't been listening to this podcast from the very start, then it's time to binge listen, because a lot of effort goes into putting in some amazing music so that you can walk or drive or run with this podcast.
the music isn't something in the background, it's part of this podcast. It's what makes this podcast different from all the other podcasts, and takes several hours to just put this music together and make it wonderful for you. So I hope you're enjoying it, and if you've jumped in at this point in time, then please feel free to go back to episode number 1 and listen to it, because now we're on episode number 76. So that's a lot of running or walking or driving to do. If 2015 passed by and you didn't leave a review on iTunes, well, here's 2016. New Year's resolution, go for it. Leave a review on iTunes, and that really helps us. Finally, there are some really good products, and one of them is dartboard pricing. It's exactly as it sounds. It shows you how to increase your prices without losing customers. And this has been tried with products, with services, with courses, pretty much everything. You can increase your prices. There are times when you have to drop your prices, not give a discount, but drop your prices. And there's this whole strategy in pricing. You have to read book 3, because once you get to book 3, in fact, you should start with book 3, it is so cool when you figure out all the elements of pricing and how it goes almost like a dinner, from the starter to the mains to then the dessert. And you'll see all this in the pricing book. That's dartboard pricing. To get it, go to psychotactics.com/TTC. If you're into presentations and you want to really improve your presentations, there are 3 books on that as well. And they are the Black Belt Presentation Series. You can go to psychotactics.com/presentation. This shows you how to control your slides. It shows you how to control your structure of your presentation, and it shows you how to control the crowd. It's been used time and time again by us for workshops, for training, and for presenting our products and services when we have to do them live in a consultation session. So it's very useful. Have a look at it, and I'm sure you'll enjoy it. So that's it, 2 sets of products that you will really enjoy. The series on presentations and the series on pricing. And that's it from me and the 3-month vacation. Enjoy the music. Bye for now.